Everyone's talking about AI these days, right? This season on Compiler, we're diving deep into how AI is reshaping the world we live in. Join us for a new season of Compiler, an original podcast from Red Hat. Subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts.
Owning a boat comes with a number of perks, like being able to say, ahoy, or land ho, and not feel weird about it. So here's another perk. Geico's boat insurance offers access to the largest towing fleet on the water. And with specialist support from agents that are as passionate about boating as you are, there's so much value that you'll want to say, shiver me timbers, and not feel weird about that either. Get more with Geico.
This is episode 346 of Wheel Bearings. I'm Sam Abuel-Samad from Guidehouse Insights.
And I am Roberto Baldwin from SAE International.
And Nicole is still off cruising rivers in Europe.
She's a river pirate.
She is. She's over there with her hubby and Perry Stern and his spouse and Jill Simonillo and her spouse. They're all on a boat together. Trapped for like a week and a half or something. So she'll be back next week.
I'm the captain now.
And we took last week off, in case you hadn't noticed, because Robbie was driving back from Salt Lake City, I think?
Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
Everything was pretty. People were really nice. We had a nice time. We had some good shows.
Good deal.
I'm assuming everyone who listens to this podcast and lives in the Salt Lake City area went and saw my bands. So good job. And for those who didn't, I know your secret shame.
All right. So what have you been driving over the last couple of weeks, Mr. Baldwin?
So take a drink of my tea, which I forgot to put Splenda in. So now it's just tea, which is fine. I have been driving two vehicles. One of them is the Range Rover Sport. So I was the 2024 Range Rover Sport Dynamic SE. So, yeah. It's very
How dynamic is it?
It's fine. It's a Range Rover. I had the PHEV like a few weeks earlier, so it was like, okay, so this is just the non-PHEV version. I'm going to tell you, just get the PHEV. Just do that. You're going to get all this extra range. I think it's up to like 50 miles. Just get the PHEV. If you're already spending all that money, you might as well just get the nicer one. So, it handles well. If I had taken it off-road, I'm sure it would have been fine. I didn't take it off-road. Like most, I drove it like a real owner. I took it to the store. I took it to the store again.
Went to the mall.
Went to Tiffany's, turned around, left. So it starts at $90,000, which is all right, cool, fine. And then the version I had, $104,000, $655,000, which is a lot of money. It's a lot of money for not having a button for the volume. My big takeaway is that there's no volume knob. There's like one on the steering wheel, but the passenger is just sort of doomed. They're like, hey, can you turn the music down? I'm like, oh, look, and my wife was looking for the button to turn down the music. I'm like, it's that little itty bitty one over there on the right near you. She's like, oh, okay, you hit it, tap 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 tap. It's annoying. That's all I'm going to say.
Touchscreens are.
It's annoying. It's all touchscreen all the time. It's not fun. It's annoying. And if I'm driving a very $100,000 car, I want some buttons. I feel like I've paid for buttons, possibly chrome buttons, or the ceramic ones, those fancy ceramic ones they have.
You would think for that kind of money they could afford to put in some at least one knob.
At least one knob. Outside of that, again, it's a very comfortable vehicle. This one has a 3.0 turbocharged and supercharged 6-cylinder gas engine. It has 395 horsepower, 406 pounds-feet of torque. It's got an 8-speed automatic transmission. It's got all-wheel drive. It's got all the things. It's very, very comfortable. I'm going to keep telling you this. The chassis is nice. Like everything this vehicle does is to make you feel like you're a fancy lad. And you feel like a fancy lad until you want to turn down the music to talk to your wife. And then you feel like, wait, what do I, oh wait, hold on, hold on.
Then you just feel frustrated.
Then it's frustrating. Or the person who's sitting in the passenger seat is like, hey, I need to tell you something. Wait, hold on. The music's really loud. I'm going to yell at you and ask you how to turn down the volume. So, yeah, good job. I mean, it's great when you stop, you open the tailgate, it goes down. Tailgate goes down. You can put things in. Lots of room. It's very, did I say it's comfortable? It's very comfortable. CarPlay, Amazon, wireless charging, all the thing. It really has all the fancy bits you expect from a Range Rover, except for a volume control. I'm just gonna keep talking about the volume control, and the climate controls are also, it takes you a little bit, because originally I thought I hit the what the temperature is, and then I have to tap up a little or tap down. Nope, you can just tap and hold and then slide up and down. So that's nice. It would be better if it was a button.
A knob or a button or a rocker?
It would be better, but you can't do that with the volume control. I tried it and I tapped it and I'm like...
Can you set the temperature by voice?
Oh, I didn't try. And
Okay.
I didn't try to set temperature by voice. I forgot. It has Amazon Amazon Alexa. Sorry for saying the wake word, everyone. If you're standing next to your Amazon thingy, it has that for integration. So I could have tried doing, setting the volume. But if the volume is really loud, it can't hear you. At some point, there's too much. If you're really rocking, if you're like me and you're driving around and you're listening to Faith No More too loud, because that's how you're supposed to listen to Faith No More.
Is there a too loud for that?
I think so. I think there's a point where you're damaging your ears. That's where that, you
Okay.
get up to that, and then you go down like 3 or 4 decibels, and you're like, okay, this is fine, I think. So yeah, it's a great car if you're looking for a British off-roader. I'm sure it's very, I've taken these vehicles on drive programs off-road. They're fine. They don't have any issue. They do a lot of off-roady bits that no one ever does, but you can do it. So, and there was no rule that I couldn't take it off-road, unlike the Velar, which I think is not their, they're like, hey, this is not that car. Whenever they give you that car, this car, they're like, yeah, whatever, man. It was all very comfortable. It's all everything is in its right place. It drives well. Chassis control is nice. It's very, it's very smooth. And of course, you can't turn down the radio without a knob. So that was that car. So I think it only gets 21 miles per gallon. So that's get the plug-in hybrid. It's just like, it's a big car. I'm like, all right, fine, but it's still that's.
And the way most people are going to drive it, it's going to have plenty of range, to do most of what you need to do on electricity, assuming you plug it in every night.
Yeah, and it just feels, and really for this vehicle, especially at how hard they work on the chassis in order to make it as smooth and comfortable as possible. Having it drive on electric only mode is outstanding. That's the perfect use for this vehicle 90% of the time. Is just cruising around electric mode, because it just accentuates how hard they've worked on the chassis, and how hard they've worked on the steering, and how hard they've worked on just making you feel like you're in a British museum having a little rest while, I don't know, something British happens in the background. Tea? Sorry, I have a bit of a cough. So there you go. 2024 Range Rover Sport Dynamic SE. Get the PHEV. I had the PHEV a few weeks ago. Better car, and get volume control.
How much electric range does that give you, by the way?
That Range Rover PHEV?
Yeah,
it's like 50 miles.
Oh, okay.
And it charges at like 50 kilowatt. It supports DC fast charging. So if you are like if you're that guy who's driving around, it's like, you know what? I don't feel like using.
You're right. It's rated at 51 miles on electricity. So yeah, I mean, if you're gonna spend $100,000 on this thing, just get the plug-in.
Get the plug-in. It's just so much better. And you know, it's DC fast charger, so you can go to any charger. So, you know, I'm working on a video right now for SAE talking about the difference between DC fast charging and PHEVs. And one of the things I have to say in there is like, you know, most PHEVs only support the level 2 charger, the 1772, not the CCS charger.
I think the only one that doesn't, or that supports DC, is the Mitsubishi Outlander.
It's the Mitsubishi Outlander,
and that's Chatamo.
And the and well, the one that's, you know, the one that supports DC fast charging, the Range Rover PHEV.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, you can
okay.
Yeah, it's crazy. You can plug it in anywhere. It's pretty great. It's especially for 50 miles of range. It means you got a pretty large battery. That's outstanding. But also, you get 50 miles of range.
Yeah.
In the big Range Rover. Just get that. Get the Range Rover PHEV. So much better. Just so much better, top to bottom. The other car I drove was it wasn't the exact same one that I got when I was doing the Daft Punk stuff. It's the Ford Transit, I believe the 200, and I drove it all the way to Salt Lake City and back. And outside of the fact that it had lane keep assist, but it didn't have cruise control. Which I guess I think they don't add it to the rental model is because I think they assume most people are just using it around town.
Yeah,
they're renting this.
They're renting it to move an apartment.
Yeah, and you know you're moving from here to here, maybe to a different town, probably around town. If you're going to a different town, you're probably getting a U-Haul. So they're thinking, oh, you're just going to use it to move some stuff around, you know, the city. So outside of that, 11 hours, 10 and a half hours in it, fighting, it was all-wheel drive, fighting headwinds all the way back from Salt Lake City. It did really well. It was as comfortable as you would expect, maybe a little bit more comfortable. It doesn't have CarPlay or anything, but you can use Bluetooth. So you plug in your phone, and you link it up, and then you can listen to your jams, which is really nice. And it has, like I said, lane keep assist, which is helpful, especially when you're not used to driving maybe something that large. It does take a little while for it to enable, though. Like you have to be over the lane essentially for it to whoa, hold on, let me remind you to, let me kind of nudge you back into your lane. So it's not. It's sort of a last-ditch effort to get you back into your lane. We drove over Tahoe. We thought it might snow, but it didn't. It did snow, but it didn't stick. So to me, that doesn't count as far as I'm concerned. And so, it was a great little car. It was a great big van. We had to load it and unload it a grand total of 11 times.
Oof.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably why my back hurts right now. That's why I was a little late today, because my back is killing me. A week later, I don't know. Yeah.
Aren't you glad you don't have to work at like a real job? Where you have to actually physically do stuff.
Well, if I had a real job where I physically would do stuff, I would have more muscles back there, so it would probably be a little bit better. But of course, repetitive movement would probably have taken me out. Tall people don't last long.
Kind of like big dogs. Big dogs.
Yeah, we're like Great Danes. We don't last very long. Whenever they go up to the person who's 107 and they ask them they're never like towering over they're always like tiny people. They're never like in their courtyard shooting hoops. Those people, all those friends are long gone.
Yeah,
they just collapsed under their own weight and height. We don't last long. I don't know where I was going with this.
You loaded and unloaded 11 times.
I unloaded, unloaded 11 times. The floors, just the right, it's not too high, which is great. What you want with a van in order to get things out. The doors open and close with ease. They locked without, which is nice. You want those rear gates. It's barn doors. You want those to lock. Mm-hmm. You don't want to slam close on you and smash you while you're trying to carry a heavy amper or I don't know.
Oh, you mean like they lock in position?
So lock in position.
Yeah, so they don't swing around. Yeah. They've got these notches in them, so I think you can open them to like 90 degrees, and then also open them basically all the way around against the side of the body too.
Yeah. So they locked. So if you're a business person and you need a van, Ford Transit van, it's good little van. Or if you get the E-Transit, that's also it's the exact same van except just electricity versus gas. I was aiming for 20 miles. And so on the way there, 20 miles per gallon. So on the way there, we got like 17 point something. And we were doing 80 because you can drive 80 miles an hour in Nevada for reasons that when you driving around, you realize, oh, I'm the only car on this interstate. And we took Interstate 80 for 1 million miles.
And it's straight as an arrow, and there's nothing around.
It's pretty. It's a very pretty drive. But yeah, you can drive 80. So that didn't help. Driving a big giant van. So I was aiming for 20. I was like, all right, maybe we can get 19. Maybe we can probably get 18. On the way back though, we just hit wind, just headwinds the entire time. So that didn't help us. So at the end we got like 15.8, 15.9 miles per gallon, which isn't great, but it was still cheaper than like renting gear in Salt Lake City. So if you're a band, maybe and you don't mind driving for over 10 hours, maybe this is a good opportunity to rent a transit van. And I like driving just vehicles I don't normally drive, so it was fun. Transit van, rent one, carry a bunch of stuff, it won't get wet. Don't leave all your stuff in your van in the driveway though, in the hotel. That's why we had to load and unload 11 times.
Yeah, because that's never a good idea. You don't want to come out in the morning and find all your stuff, or not find all your stuff.
Exactly. Because I'm in bands. I have friends who are in other bands, who have friends who are in other bands, who have friends, blah blah. And so at least once a week, there is a posting from a band that says, "Oh, all our gear got stolen out of our whatever, out of our space, out of our van, it's mostly out of their van." Mm-hmm. And every time I'm like, man, you gotta load that stuff in. I know you're tired. I'm so tired after a show, but I gotta get all that stuff out. It's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of money, especially all that drum stuff. Man, drums are a ripoff, to be honest. It's just metal and metal.
Yeah. All right. Well, I had the 2024 Subaru CrossTrek Wilderness edition. So this is the most off-roadiest of CrossTrek variants, and it was
the trekkiest of treks.
Yes. When my wife came in, she had gone to the grocery store. She came in and she saw this thing in the driveway, and she said, "What the hell is that?" And my wife is not a fan of lots of black cladding. Which
it's 90% cladding, to be honest.
Yeah. And so there's lots of cladding on this, and then on the Wilderness, you also have some like copper bronze pieces, like for the roof racks. The end caps on the roof racks are this coppery bronze color, and there's some bits of trim inside the cabin that are like that. But basically the CrossTrek, as it has always been, is essentially a lifted version of the Impreza, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, Impreza's a great car.
It is. It's excellent. As a compact hatchback with standard all-wheel drive, gets reasonable fuel economy. It is. It's an excellent vehicle for what it is. It is actually surprisingly roomy. It's quite roomy inside. It's a nice vehicle to drive too. It's not. This is not a sporty SUV. It's relatively mild in its performance. Even the Wilderness. So there's two engines available in the CrossTrek. There is the base engine in the base and premium trims is a 2-liter 4-cylinder boxer, 152 horsepower, 145 foot-pounds of torque. The Sport, Limited, and Wilderness trims get a 2.5-liter, 182 horsepower, 178 pounds-feet of torque. It's adequate. is, combined with the CVT that you have in all Subarus now, except for the BRZ, it's not exciting to drive, but it does the job.
It does the job. That's all you
adequate
want.
performance to safely merge onto a highway. You're probably not going to want to make real tight passing, like passing maneuvers on 2-lane back roads where there's not a lot of space. But other than that, it's fine. It is it's very comfortable to drive. The seats are comfortable. The interior, overall, the back seat is roomy enough, certainly for 2 adults, 3 if they're not too broad shouldered. And it's a very reasonably priced vehicle as well. So you can get a lot out of this thing. If you get the CrossTrek Wilderness, because it's on bigger off-road, all-terrain tires, it's not especially it's not as fuel efficient as the other trim levels. I think you can get up to, I think it's rated about 27 for the other trims, but with the roof rack and everything on the Wilderness, I averaged about 24 over my week with it, which is fine. The infotainment system, amazingly enough, has a volume knob and, get this, a tuning knob as well. And there's physical
madness.
There's physical buttons on each side of the center touchscreen for adjusting the temperature. So the driver can adjust their temperature up and down. It's got 2 buttons there, and there's 2 more on the other side of the screen for the passenger to do the same thing.
What is this insanity? What is going on at Subaru? Making an adequate vehicle that's great for off-road, is comfortable to drive, and has buttons. They're crazy.
I know, it's bonkers.
Someone should talk to them. I'll get them on the horn.
Clearly, they haven't been paying enough attention to the market.
To be honest, I'm happy.
Yeah. The vents, again, just reach out, grab the little tab on the vents. You can direct the airflow wherever you want it. No searching around in touchscreen menus. It's great. I mean, it's a really nice vehicle to drive. The ride quality is very good, even over a rough pavement. I didn't take it off road, but I drove it, on some dirt roads that, have seen quite a bit of rain lately, and they're not as they haven't been graded recently. Mm-hmm. So there's that, but the center touchscreen, the infotainment screen, I think it's an 11-inch screen. So it's a good size screen, and the base trim levels actually have 2 separate screens. They're smaller, like 7-inch screens. But if you get any of the upper trim levels, it's just one single larger screen. The screen is, it's got good contrast. It's bright enough. It's got support for CarPlay and Android Auto, wireless as well. You got USB charging ports. One thing about the infotainment system works fine. It's fairly responsive when you touch stuff, but when you're using CarPlay or Android Auto, it basically takes up like about the middle 2/3 of the screen for the projection display. And then it keeps some other stuff at the top and the bottom of the screen. So at the top, you can have some gauges up there. So you have things like your outside temperature, the clock, coolant temp, oil temp, average speed, and you can toggle different stuff to display on there. At the bottom, you have some additional climate control stuff like the fan speed control, toggling.
So when you adjust things, it doesn't take over. It doesn't take over projection.
Right.
You can still see all the
Yeah. With all that stuff on there, when you glance over at the screen, it does look a little cluttered. Because there's a lot of stuff there, but it's not bad. I've seen far worse. And like I said, the projection display for CarPlay or Android Auto stays where it is in the same section of the screen. And it's there visible all the time, and it takes up, like I say, about 2/3 of the screen, which is good. So you have nice, good sized touch targets to hit there. So it's fairly easy to use. Yeah, no real complaints. And, in my week of driving it, I got about 24 miles per gallon with it, 24 and a half, which is, not tremendous, but not bad. And that was a fair bit of highway driving as well, with it. So, if you're doing more lower speed, urban, suburban driving, you might get a little bit better than that. And especially if you don't have the Wilderness edition, you might do slightly better than that. But, it's good. I like it. Styling is always a matter of personal taste. I said my wife is not particularly fond of it. I'm neither here nor there. It probably wouldn't be my preference. But then again, I'm not inclined to buy an SUV-ish type vehicle anyway. I actually prefer the Impreza, which is the same body shell, but it sits a little bit lower. I don't have a need for the extra ground clearance, and it doesn't have all the cladding on it. I think the Impreza is a cleaner look to it. I had one of those a couple of months ago, and really liked that. But besides that, the rest is really good. Interestingly, on the Wilderness edition, the Wilderness has where is it here? 9.3 inches of ground clearance, which is actually shockingly good for a vehicle of this type. I mean, this is
it's like the same amount as like the G-Wagon.
Yeah, and
it's like a tenth of an inch within like of the G-Wagon. It's like really crazy.
For comparison, the Ford Bronco Sport, which is nominally a competitor to this, the base and the Big Bend versions of the Bronco Sport have 7.8 inches of ground clearance. So you got an extra inch and a half compared to the Bronco Sport. Even the where is it, the Badlands trim level, which is the most off-roadiest of Bronco Sports, is only 8.6 inches. So you got like 3/4 of an inch more than a Bronco Sport Badlands. So, this, if you live somewhere where you get lots of snow, and you need something that's going to be able to go places in the wintertime when there's lots of snow on the ground, I would absolutely choose this over a Bronco Sport, unless you're planning to lift your Bronco Sport and put bigger tires on it to get more ground clearance. This thing comes with the Wilderness, especially comes with, these nice, pretty decent all-terrain tires on it. A surprising amount of ground clearance, full-time all-wheel drive. It's got, Subaru's X Trail system in there for, and different modes, to give you extra traction. This is actually a really awesome choice if you want something that, is reasonable sized, can be used for any kind of daily driving without too much hassle, can go most places in the wintertime. It's a great choice for stuff like that. So I think that, you should definitely consider it. The one I had, came in just over $35,000, all in, so that the Wilderness is, kind of pretty much loaded, but you can get, CrossTreks starting at about $27,000. So, it's definitely something to consider if you need something that's got some, modest off-roady capability, or even more aggressive off-road capability, and don't want to spend, huge amounts of money and still get, still have something that's practical.
Yeah, it's the when I looked at, because I remember seeing that, was it 9.6, 9.5,
9.3.
9.3. Yeah, so the G-Wagon's 9.4. So the G-Wagon's like 0.1 inch higher than the I remember just I don't know why I looked it up, but I was like, what's the craziest? Oh, the G-Wagon. And it's it's for the money, for what you're getting.
Yeah.
And the fact that it has,
it's also got 3,500 pound towing capability. So, if you, if you've got a small trailer, like if you've got one of those like little mini camper trailers, those things usually weigh less than 2,000 pounds. Like the Happier camper. Friends of ours have one of those. They love it. you can easily tow one of those, or, if you've got, a couple of jet skis, those would typically be, trailer with a couple of jet skis. That's going to be under 3,500 pounds. So, this is a surprisingly capable little, off-roady car.
Yeah, no, you should be
definitely worth checking out.
Totally.
So that's the Subaru CrossTrek Wilderness. Like I said, I would probably go with, maybe the Sport or the Limited instead of the Wilderness. But, and any one of them are, even with the Wilderness at 35,000. And that's the other thing about the Wilderness, with the Sport and the Limited, you get a 3.7 to 1 final drive ratio. The Wilderness has a 4.11 final drive ratio. That's why the fuel economy is a little bit worse, because it's rated. It's normally rated at 27 miles per gallon combined. Like I said, I got a little over 24, and that's largely due to the tires and that final drive ratio.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
it's a good car.
Subaru CrossTrek. Go for it.
Get one for your kids.
Yeah,
or for yourself. Treat yourself.
Absolutely. And I think for most people, you're probably likely to find a much higher percentage of CrossTrek owners actually going off road than Range Rover Sport owners. Oh yeah, definitely. More those people who are buying the CrossTrek, like they live somewhere where it's like really snowy. They're like, I just need a car to get me. They don't mind if a branch, occasionally makes a little scratch in the paint. Yeah, I live on a dirt road, or I have to do this, I have to do that. It's gonna snow. I got to drive over things. I got to drive through a creek. I'm just gonna get a Subaru. I don't need to show off. I don't need to impress my friends. I don't need to lift it 700 miles into the air. It's fine. I just need to get somewhere, and hey, I want to be able to use the buttons with my gloves. Yeah, I want to be able to, while my hands are cold, I want to be able to still do things. Smartphones have gotten way more expensive over the past decade, and all it takes is one impact on a hard floor to make you wish you had spent a few bucks to put a case on it. Going online without ExpressVPN is like not having a case for your phone, and it only costs a few dollars a month. Nicole, Robbie, and I travel a lot for our work, and we spend a lot of time in hotels, coffee shops, airplanes, and of course the Delta Sky Club. Connecting to the Wi-Fi in any public places with shared Wi-Fi puts your data at risk, because bad actors could be intercepting what you send and using it to steal from you. It only takes some cheap hardware to intercept Wi-Fi data, and even a smart preteen can do it. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per victim selling personal information on the dark web. ExpressVPN stops the bad guys by creating a secure, encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. ExpressVPN uses state-of-the-art encryption that would take a supercomputer up to 1 billion years to crack. I have ExpressVPN on all my devices, including a MacBook Pro, Windows laptops and desktops, and Android and iOS phones and laptops, or tablets. When I want to be secure, I just launch the app, click once to connect, and my data is secure. As I said, I travel a lot for my work, and I have to connect to countless public Wi-Fi networks in many countries. I have ExpressVPN on all my connected devices so that whoever else is on the same network can't see any of my data. That's important because I often have to check banks, credit card accounts, and transmit client data that might be sensitive, as well as filing articles on news that might be under embargo. ExpressVPN protects all of it, and I've been paying for my own account for years. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/wheelbearings. That's expressvpn.com/wheelbearings, and you can get an extra 4 months for free. expressvpn.com/wheelbearings.
Everyone's talking about AI these days, right? This season on Compiler, we're diving deep into how AI is reshaping the world we live in. Join us for a new season of Compiler, an original podcast from Red Hat. Subscribe now, wherever you get your podcasts.
One of the hardest parts of getting older is feeling like something's off in your body, but not knowing exactly what. It's not just aging, it's often your hormones too. When they fall out of balance, everything feels off. But here's the good news. This doesn't have to be the story of your next chapter. Hormone Harmony by Happy Mammoth is an herbal formula made with science-backed ingredients designed to fine-tune your hormones by balancing estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, and even stress hormones like cortisol. It helps with common issues such as hot flashes, poor sleep, low energy, bloating, and more. With over 40,000 reviews and a bottle sold every 24 seconds, the results speak for themselves. A survey found 86% of women lost weight, 77% saw an improved mood, and 100% felt like themselves again. Start your next chapter feeling balanced and in control. For a limited time, get 15% off your entire first order at happymammoth.com with code NEXTCHAPTER at checkout. Visit happymammoth.com today and get your old self back naturally.
Did you know you can support Wheel Bearings directly? Head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia and you can become a patron today. Your contributions will help fund the platforms and tools we use to bring the podcast to you. And exclusives and improvements are already on the way thanks to your generosity. So if you want to be part of an automotive podcast like no other, head to patreon.com/wheelbearingsmedia. We've updated the Wheel Bearings merch store, and now there's a whole bunch of new choices, new colors, new styles, t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, hats, mugs, travel mugs, stickers, aprons, tote bags, you name it. You can get your Wheel Bearings merch at shop.wheelbearings.media. Go check it out. That's shop.wheelbearings.media. All right, let's move on to some stories of the week. So this was a really big week for the UAW, the United Auto Workers Union, because for the first time, I think for the first time ever, maybe certainly for the first time, like the last time that a plant that is at least partially owned by a foreign automaker was unionized was sometime in the early 1990s, and that would have been what is now Ford's Flat Rock assembly plant, where they build Mustangs. At that time, it was originally a joint venture between Mazda and Ford.
That makes sense.
And that one's UAW represented. But this week, workers at Volkswagen's factory in Chattanooga, Tennessee, voted by a 73% margin to join the UAW, which is big. The South, plants in the South, southern states are generally not very amenable to unionization. In fact, before the vote, 6 Southern governors, including Bill Lee, the governor of Tennessee, signed a joint letter saying, workers should not join the UAW. They're going against our way of life, which apparently means, allowing companies to do whatever they want. So the workers at the Chattanooga assembly plant are now going to be represented by the UAW and go into contract negotiations with the union. And presumably will be the UAW will be working to get them comparable wages and benefits to what workers at Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis got last fall in their contracts. And there's another vote coming up May 17th at the Mercedes-Benz factories in Alabama, which also, something like 75 or 80% of the workers there signed union cards, and they're holding an election on May 17th. And that would be another big one, if a factory, an auto factory in Alabama votes to join. So some big progress for the UAW.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm very pro-union. I believe, I've worked for a lot of places, and I've seen how when you work for places and you see that the guy or gal who runs a place is making a bajillion dollars, and then they're telling you like, we can't really give you health care. There's a huge disconnect in how we're taking care of the people who actually build the vehicles that actually go on the roads, versus the people who, I'm just going to say in the last few years haven't done a great job for some of these companies. Whenever there's layoffs, there was always a decision way up top that created that layoff. So, it'd be, and when you have no repercussions, you're just laid off. There's no severance. There's no nothing because you don't have a union. Then you're just kind of, that messes with an entire, sometimes an entire town. It messes with families. People sometimes they have children who are themselves or family members who need, medical benefits, and now they no longer have it. immediately, which throws it just creates chaos. And when you have the entire all the employees working together as one in order to negotiate with a company that's working together with all of its lawyers and all these people and all these accountants as one, it really levels the playing field to make sure that people are taken care of.
And, it tends to also benefit not just the people working in the unionized facilities, but also other competitors in the area. Like my dad was a member of the United Steelworkers. He worked in a steel mill in Hamilton, Ontario when I was growing up for more than 30 years. And, over the course of that 30 years, they went on strike several times. There were two main steel companies in Hamilton at the time, Stelco, which was unionized, and DeFasco, which wasn't. And what happened was, every time the steelworkers at Stelco, negotiated a new contract and got increased wages or benefits, the workers at DeFasco got the same thing. And that's, that's fine. Obviously it put, more pain on the steelworkers that had to go on, the steelworkers that went on strike, but, more people benefit. But when there's nobody that's unionized, like is typically the case across most southern states, then, nobody we saw some improvement last fall, after the UAW strikes, that most other automakers did raise wages and benefits for their non-unionized workers, but still not to the same level as what the UAW workers are getting at Ford, GM, and Stellantis. And so now I think we're going to see that raise up even more, with as we start to organize some of these other plants. And like you said, I think benefits like healthcare, that's a big one. I mean, if you don't have healthcare, health insurance, that can quickly bankrupt a family if some catastrophe happens.
Yeah.
So,
and this raises all boats in a community.
Mm-hmm.
Because if let's say the factory nearby, which is the majority, the largest employer in an area, if everyone's getting more money, guess what? They're spending more money in a community. Yeah. That's good for the tax base. That's good for small businesses that are around. That's good for the
restaurants, stores, schools.
Yeah,
everybody.
Like everything rises up when everyone makes more money. It rises up when the majority makes more money. It doesn't rise up when the CEO makes more money.
Yeah.
The only person who's, yacht makers, I guess.
CEOs can only spend so much money.
Yeah. At some point, they just buy insane things that don't like benefit anyone. And occasionally they'll give like, oh, here's $100,000 to a thing. Like, oh, that's great. That's like me giving $3.
And then they write it off on their taxes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like me, I gave $3 to a school. They're like, really? That's all you gave? I'm like, well, it's the equivalent of the CEO giving $100,000. And they're like, oh, yeah. See how that works? It's really difficult to sort of explain to someone like how much $1 million is, because we just throw the number around like it's nothing, but it's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. It's an incredible amount of money. And $1 billion. Oh my gosh, you couldn't even spend that in a lifetime for most people.
Yeah,
that's more than most people will make in their entire lives. $1 billion, and you have multi-billionaires, and you're just like, what are they doing with their mony?
Yeah.
Oh, a mega yacht.
Buying a $500 million yacht.
Yeah, or a social network, or an island, or it benefits 4 people who live on an island.
Yeah.
So yeah, give the workers more money. The workers spend more money. Everyone in the area, benefits from that.
My guess is the next target after Mercedes-Benz is going to be Hyundai. Because Hyundai's had a lot of issues over the last couple of years with some labor issues with, especially at some of their suppliers, having underage workers in there, child labor in there. Not good.
Yeah. Well, then they have some states that are like, you know what, you can have kids working at coal mines and stuff, and I'm like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Well, we don't need children going to work in factories and coal mines.
No, we did that before.
Parents getting paid more for working in those factories and coal mines, so that they can afford to buy the things their family needs. Yeah. So that the kids don't have to go to work; they can go to school and learn.
Yeah, give a trade college. I'm a big believer in trade colleges or trade schools.
Yeah, a vocational training.
Electrician. We need electricians. If your kid is just like, I don't really feel like going to school, electrician.
Yeah.
That kid is going to make so much more. That kid's going to make double what I make. And I've been doing my job for like 20 years.
Yeah.
I'm a professional.
You know what jobs are never, ever, ever going to get replaced by an AI? Plumbers, electricians, carpenters, bricklayers. AIs can't do that.
They can't do that.
You need people.
You can replace me anytime. You can't replace the electrician. And then with all the, part of SAE's thing is that we have a whole career center. It's sustainablecareers.se.org. Anyway, that's what we have, this thing. But it's we have all this training, or we're working with people for training to be people who fix the EVSEs, the charging
chargers.
stations. Because the more those, because they're all, they're broken. Someone has to fix them.
Yeah.
Hey, guess what? You can have a really good job.
Yeah. I mean, part of the reason, why we have so many problems with chargers not working is just finding technicians to actually go out and fix them. Hire, getting people with the right skills to go out and do that. So, I mean, there's going to be, with the shift to electrification, there's going to be a shift in the job market. Some jobs that we've traditionally had, assembling engines are going to go away, but we're also creating a lot of other new jobs that we didn't have before.
Assembling batteries, working on these. Like, again, just bare bones electrician. I'm telling you, if your kid is 18, they do not want to go to college. They want something that's going to pay them well. Electrician.
Yeah.
I don't know where you got to send them, out of a community college or a local trade school.
Yeah. And there's a lot of community colleges, trade schools, have vocational training programs, skilled trades programs. So it's definitely worth looking into that as an alternative to,
because it's going to give them a leg up, because then they can go on and get other training, specialized training, whether in manufacturing batteries or working with battery teams, or again, working on these stations, or just, installing the billions of level 2 chargers we're all going to put in our houses, and understanding like what it means. We're like, oh, we're going to do bi-directional charging. All right, so you're going to need to upgrade this, and this in your home. And the person's like, oh, okay, well, how much is it going to be? And you're like, a couple, X thousands of dollars. And I'm like, all right, cool, boom, bunch of money. Electricians. I feel like I should just quit right now. Stop doing the podcast. Just walk off and take an electrician class. I feel like I've been trying to talk myself out of becoming an electrician instead of like just being a big supporter of people becoming electricians. I'm like, maybe I should just drink my own Kool-Aid.
I mean, I've been doing a lot of my own electrical work for decades, small stuff, replacing switches. And yesterday I replaced a light socket in my wife's closet. But for when it comes to big stuff, like putting in, the charger outlet in my garage last year, or some of the other things, then I call an electrician. If we need a panel upgrade or things like that, I'll call an electrician, because
electricity is terrifying.
I don't want to take. Yes. I have been on the receiving end of pulling off a spark plug cable with my bare hand while the engine's running.
Getting shocked. Oh yeah, I've been shocked. Yeah.
I mean, that 100,000 volts. That's not fun.
You're like, yeah, I've had that happen.
Yeah.
Everyone who has a car has had that happen, because we're all
trying to find which cylinder is misfiring. And it's like,
you're like,
start pulling them off one by one. It's like,
no. Oh God,
you're supposed to do that with a pair of leather pliers, not with your bare hands.
No, we're idiots.
Yeah.
So become electricians so that doesn't happen to you as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, you mentioned bidirectional charging, so let's jump to a GM announcement from this week. Actually, GM Energy, which is their business unit that focuses on charging products. So they're doing things like working with EVgo and Pilot Travel Centers and other partners to put in DC fast chargers. But they also offer home charging solutions. And this week they officially launched sales of their vehicle to home product line. So this is like what Ford did when they launched the Lightning, where they have their intelligent power backup system. Essentially the same thing. So they have a couple of kits that you can buy. There's what GM refers to as the GM Energy V2H enablement kit, which is that's essentially just the integration kit. So that gets you a box that is the inverter and a and then there's the home hub, which is the controller and the transfer switch. So that this is designed so that when your power goes out from your utility, and if your EV is plugged in and has bidirectional capability, then it can start drawing power from your EV for a while to keep your home powered up. And then there's also what they call a dark start battery. So this, when your grid power goes out, the dark start battery provides power for a short period of time to boot up these other devices and start grabbing all that stuff. GM Energy is charging $5,600 for this kit. By comparison, the Sunrun kit from Ford is about $4,000. So it's a little more expensive than the Ford kit. But it's also got potential for expansion and capabilities for other stuff that Ford isn't yet supporting. And then in addition to this, you also need to buy the bidirectional wall charger for your vehicle. So that's an 80 amp, 19 kilowatt wall charger, which is $1,700. So that allows power to flow from the vehicle back into your home circuits. So I think it's $7,300 in total for the enablement kit and
to make it all work.
Yeah, and what GM's calling the power shift charger. So the problem, the only problem with this, I mean, this is a great idea, but this is just for the hardware. It doesn't include installation, and as we've talked about before, depending on how your house is configured, this could get really expensive really fast.
If you have old wiring, you're gonna, I mean, even for, especially if it's an 80 amp, I have a 60 amp, which for our level 2 charger, which means I'd have to upgrade that secondary box that I've added to my house, which I'm sure, like, because I've already had someone do most of the work, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But doing that work was $700 and that included like permitting. So someone had to come out and do permitting for it. So,
yeah.
And that's in the Bay Area, but I mean, everywhere is going to be different. And but it's funny because I had to get an electrician.
Yeah. Well, there was a story last year from Motor Trend. They had a long-term Lightning, and they wanted to install the home backup kit for the Lightning in the house of one of the writers. And when they had somebody come out and do the estimate, you had a house that was built in the 1950s, had a detached garage, and had a 100 amp service panel. And the total cost for the installation would have been something like $18,000 because they would have had to replace the main breaker panel, run a trench for power for the line from the house to the garage, because it had an overhead power line, which under current code would not have been allowed.
It's just fire in the sky.
Yeah. So, if you have a newer home, it's probably going to cost you maybe somewhere around $3,000 or $4,000 to do the installation. But if you have an older house, this is going to get really expensive really fast.
I see a point in the future where, in California, if you build a new house, you have to put solar panels on it. I see a point where it's probably going to be like 10, 15 years where you're going to have, like, when a house is being built, it's automatically built with this in mind. Yeah. Bidirectional charge. But there's no standard yet. And don't blame me. I don't work on that standard at SAE. But there's no standard yet. I talked to Wade Sheffer, the vice president of GM Energy, about this. And he's like, it only works for GM products right now. And especially, it only really works for the Silverado with, these software updates for the Blazer and the Equinox and whatnot. And, by 2026, pretty much all the vehicles will support bidirectional charging from the factory. But I asked him, like, what happens if you live in a mixed home? Like, I have a Kia EV, let's say I have a Silverado and I have an EV9. And he's like, well, that's the that's the dream, is that someday, you just buy the GM box, but it works with all the EVs that support bidirectional charging. But everyone, Kia has the EV9 with wall box. They're working on something. And then Ford has its own thing. It's all sort of proprietary or sort of like put together. And I think once we get a good standard where everyone just sort of figures out what they need to do, then this is going to make way more sense. And I think the prices are going to probably start coming down, because once you say, oh, okay, well, we all need this, circuit, instead of like, and it reduces, for other companies like Honda or Toyota who haven't done this yet, they can say, let's wait and see how it shakes out before we do this. And then once they're like, oh, okay, now we can do it. Now we, and then other, Toyota can do it. Subaru can do it. But yeah, right now it's very much a first, it's the first people who are kind of, you pay a lot when you're an early adopter.
Yeah,
that's what's happening right now. This is a huge game changer, because you're essentially telling people, oh, by the way, the car in your driveway or in your garage, that's now part of your house, and it's also part of the grid. So we're doing grid leveling, we're doing power leveling. We're helping to balance the grid. You're helping to, you can charge at night, and then during the day use the electricity in one of your vehicles to run your house, so your energy bill will be lower. And yeah, it's a huge part of EVs that benefits homeowners and the grid. But it's just we're right at it's still pretty early days on this.
We're still very much on the bleeding edge of this.
Yeah, which is why you're going to pay like $30,000 if you have like a detached garage, which seems like perfect. You're like, oh, that's awesome, that's perfect, but nope.
Yeah. But as you said, right now the Silverado and the Sierra EV that's coming out later this summer, we'll have the support. The Blazer EV, the Equinox EV, and the 2024 Cadillac Lyriq have the hardware, the bidirectional hardware, charging hardware on the vehicle to support this, and they will be getting a software update at some point in the coming months that will enable them to work with this as well. And then GM did say by 2026, all of their EVs will have support for this. And once we start standardizing some of this stuff, and new homes are being built, with EVs in mind, so they're figuring out, where to put the electrical panels and the wiring and everything, so that, it's less painful to make this sort of upgrade.
Yeah, you buy a new house in like 5-10 years, you're going to walk into it. It's already going to have solar. It's already going to have all these things. And you're just going to be like, oh, I want bidirectional charging. And they're like, oh, yeah, there's a thing right here. You already have the panel for it. Yeah. Probably not like with that voice. Probably a smarter person. Likely an electrician who listened to this show, who at 17 and was like, you know what, I think I'm going to do that. And now they're billionaires. They're going to make so much money. I don't know why.
The other thing that GM's also going to be offering is a system with a home storage battery. So if you have solar, you can integrate the battery, and they'll have 10 and 17 kilowatt hour battery options, and you can have up to 2 batteries. So you could potentially get up to 35 kilowatt hours, so that, any excess power from your solar can get stored in that battery, and be used to power your house overnight, or charge your vehicle overnight. So if your vehicle's out and about during the day when you're generating solar power, you can store some of that juice in this battery and use that to charge your vehicle overnight. So those kits are going to start at $12,700, including the battery and the bidirectional charger.
Yeah. Again, I'm at some point we're going to have 2 cars, and one of them is just going to be at home.
Yeah.
If you live in, and I think every once in a while somebody be like, well, I don't understand what I'm like, you clearly don't live in Northern California or Hawaii or Florida, or places where, at certain times of year, guess what? Your power's going out for various reasons. And it would be nice if, that power didn't go out.
Yeah. Well, PG&E has been doing some testing for a while now with Ford and GM with their electric trucks, testing demand response systems like right now, all of these systems that Ford and GM are selling all work locally in your home. And when they detect a power outage, it'll automatically shift to taking power from your vehicle battery. But what PG&E is testing, and some other utilities also doing similar tests, is to be able to manage it remotely, so that if you opt in and your vehicle is at home and plugged in during the day, and the utilities hitting their peak power levels where they might have to do rolling blackouts or brownouts, what they can do is reach out to your home and automatically switch your home off the grid and use your EV battery to power your home for an hour, 2-3 hours. And these things, the Lightning battery can power an average American home for about 3 days. Average U.S. household uses about 29 kilowatt hours a day. So, without turning anything off, the Lightning can do about 3 days. The Silverado can do about twice that, can do about 6 days. And if you turn off unessential stuff, you can go up to about 20 days with a Silverado.
Yeah, you can just I just need the refrigerator and the router and the TV and Netflix. That's all I need.
and maybe a few lights, for the night.
Well, I mean, we got candles.
Yeah.
Why don't you have lights on? Because we really need Netflix more than lights.
But if utilities can do that, then they can avoid the blackouts. It doesn't necessarily have to be everybody. It doesn't. People have their vehicles out and using them during the day during those peak load times. They can. Once you get a sufficient number of vehicles that are plugged in and opted in, you can use those and rotate around them. If you've got enough vehicles, so that none of them are using up the battery for very long.
Yeah, no, it's pretty crazy when you think about it. Because I think the argument that I see a lot is everyone's going to plug their EV in at 3:00 in the afternoon on the worst day ever and bring down the entire grid, which is not how people fuel anything.
Yeah.
People don't not everyone goes and gets gas for their car at the exact same moment. First of all, because you can't, but second, because no one does that. You get gas when you can get gas. And EV, most people, I'm assuming if you care about money, most people are charging EVs at home in the middle of the night when, the grid is just, barely being hit. So because it's cheaper. It's cheaper to charge at night. That's when we charge our car. I think maybe once or twice we've charged it. I've forced it to charge during the day, just because we kind of forgot to charge the car for a week. Because you don't need to charge it every day, because we don't drive, as much as people think they do. But yeah, no, it's huge. It's a huge thing once because it just benefits so many people, and the fact that we can keep power on for people who can't afford an EV, who can't afford bidirectional charging, who can't, if we can keep the power on for them during the hottest days of the year, because a lot of people can't afford, the people who can't afford and bidirectional charge, they can be pulled off the grid. No, that's great.
Yep.
Owning a boat comes with a number of perks, like being able to say ahoy or land ho and not feel weird about it. So here's another perk. Geico's boat insurance offers access to the largest towing fleet on the water. And with specialist support from agents that are as passionate about boating as you are, there's so much value that you'll want to say, shiver me timbers, and not feel weird about that either. Get more with Geico.
All right. So last week, Toyota had an event in California. They had, unfortunately, none of us were, although I was invited, I had other commitments and couldn't go. And Nicole was cruising around Europe, and I'm not sure you were doing, I think, SAE World Congress.
Oh, that was cool,
this is
by the way. I don't know. Well, it was so cool. It was a lot cooler than I thought.
At any rate,
SAE.
Yeah. At any rate, Toyota unveiled the 6th generation 4Runner. And so this is, their fourth SUV. I guess not actually fifth SUV based on their TNGA frame platform. Third Toyota branded one. because they already have the Land Cruiser and they got the Sequoia, and now they got the 4Runner. And this is basically, it's a Tacoma with an SUV body on it. So instead of a truck bed on the back, it's the pickup bed on the back. It's got a closed body on the back. What do you think of the new 4Runner?
It looks like it has 2 handlebar mustaches. And now that I've said that, you'll never be able to unsee it. I apologize, but it looks like it has 2 handlebar mustaches.
One stacked on top of the other, and it's
one stacked on top of the other. And also you get you can get a snorkel now, which I guess, that's cool, but I don't. Fine. It's very much one of those things that
for those people that really want to look like they go off road.
Yeah, I drive through a lot of rivers, and I'm going to need a snorkel, which is, you have your money, do what you want. No, here's the thing is whenever people are like, what are the cars that you need for the end of the world? I don't know, 4Runner, but it would need to be an electric 4Runner because at some point, you can't refine gasoline, but you can always get electricity from the sun.
That's true.
A 4Runner with an electric powertrain is like the perfect end of the world car.
Because it's a Toyota, so it's going to run pretty much forever anyway.
It's going to run until the marauders come and invade your little part of the world, but it's going to run some more because they're going to take it and then they're going to use it. No, the 4Runner, it's like we could probably drop a bomb on this 4Runner right here, and yes, the snorkel would pop off. And the
but you can just snap it back on because it's just plastic. So
and the double handlebar mustache might get a little singed, but you're gonna get back in it, drive away.
Yeah, if you've been watching the new Fallout series on Amazon, 200 years from now, this 4Runner will probably still be working.
Oh yeah, it'll be at the bottom of that pit.
The ghoul will be driving around in this thing.
Yeah, you don't need a horse. You'll be driving around a 4Runner. Horses, the only self-driving vehicles available.
Yeah. So the 4Runner, from the B pillar forward, is basically exactly the same as the Tacoma, the new Tacoma, which is good. And then the back end, the rear quarter glass, now kind of harkening back to the original first couple of generations, it curves up a little, slightly into the roof, so you got a little airier look back there. I think it's a sharp looking SUV.
No, I like it. Here's the thing is that the only SUV I've actually thought about owning, said, oh yeah, was a 4Runner.
Yeah.
There was a point where I could buy my WRX, or my in-laws had a 4Runner that they would one of those oxen red sport 4Runner sports from the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
It's an awesome vehicle. And I really want a WRX, and I think I made the right decision for me because it makes more sense for me to have a WRX than it does to have a 4Runner. But also I think about, I'm like, when that car blew up, boxer engine. I was like, hey, do your parents still have that 4Runner? My wife's like, no, they sold it. I was like, oh wow.
So like the Tacoma, it's got the same powertrain options as Tacoma, the 2.4 liter turbo, 4-cylinder, 278 horsepower. And you can also get it as a hybrid, with 326 horsepower, 465 foot-pounds of torque. So pretty hefty power output in this thing. They've got the base SR5. There's a TRD Sport, TRD Off-Road, and Limited. And there's also, with the hybrid, you can get the TRD Pro, Platinum, and the new Trail Hunter, just as they've done with the Tacoma and the let's see, did they do is there a Trail Hunter version of the Land Cruiser? I can't remember. I don't
let's just say maybe.
Yeah. So the TRD Pro is more the rock crawler, the Trail Hunter is more overlanding. So you got lots of options to choose from with this new one. Goes on sale this fall. 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, part-time 4-wheel drive, or full-time 4-wheel drive. No pricing yet, but probably starting somewhere in the low to mid 40s and running up to 60, 65 for a Trail Hunter version or a Platinum. So
I like, and this greenish blue color.
Yeah.
The Trail Hunter one they have. And with those wheels.
Yeah, the bronze colored wheels and some other trim and the greenish blue bodywork. Yeah, I like that combination.
There's a reason why people are bonkers for Toyota trucks.
Yeah.
Like, and the entire state of Hawaii is just one giant Toyota truck. If you ever go to Hawaii, especially if you go to the Big Island or to Kauai, where it's like a lot of off-roading, it's just nothing but Toyota trucks.
Tacomas are everywhere.
They're everywhere, and if you see a Jeep, it's likely a rental. That's how they do.
Yeah, when we were there last year, and they revealed the Tacoma, they told us, part of the reason why they did the event there is because the Tacoma has been the number one selling vehicle in the state of Hawaii for like 22, 23 years.
Yeah.
And when you go out on the road, you literally see them everywhere,
and they're filthy.
Yeah.
Just absolutely filthy because because there's a lot of off-roading in the state of Hawaii.
Yeah.
Like people live where people live. There are a lot of people at work. They do construction. They do this. They do that. Or they want to go somewhere where the tourists can't go for like a nice picnic. And I accidentally found one of those in a Kia Sorento. And everyone in their Tacomas was looking at me as I was driving by. And
who the hell are you?
Oh my God, we're gonna have to help this idiot get unstuck, aren't we? It was that sort of like, it wasn't a look of like, oh, they found us. It was more of a, oh, we're gonna have to help these idiots. Fortunately, I was able to leave. I'm like, this is probably not great for this car. Let's turn around and go back.
Another one of the features they have on the Tacoma is standard feature is a power rear window that slides down into the tailgate, so you can have a little bit of extra airiness, or hang your surfboard out the back.
I know Toyota's been really slow, and Mr. Toyota is not a big fan of EVs, but man, as soon as they get some EVs,
yeah.
I found out my wife likes trucks.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, we get a nice small SR5 EV, 200 miles of range. Just gonna be so happy.
Well, I mean, when they showed off, those 15 electric concepts a couple of years ago,
which by the way, all of them were awesome. Like, come on, guys, you can't show us like the greatest EVs and be like, we don't really like EVs.
Well, I mean, one of them was a pickup, a mid-size pickup that, strangely enough, looked exactly like what the new Tacoma turned out to be.
Yes.
So clearly, they're thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to. They're just, again, they're like to call it. They're a high school kid. They're like, well, fine, we'll do it. And then it's going to last us 1,000 years, and they're probably going to we're just going to wait until we get solid state. We're not even going to do it till we get solid state.
Nah.
Which they're actively working on. So, yeah.
All right. So during the week we were off, I went to Santa Monica for a BMW event, and they did the first U.S. showing of the Neue Class, Vision Neue Class X, which is a preview of what's coming second half of next year for their next EV. So, the Neue Class is their new purpose-built EV platform, and it's by let's see, the first one, which is going to be based on this Vision Neue Class, which is a mid-sized crossover, so sort of an X3 sized crossover, is launching later in 2025. And then over the next 24 months through 2026 and 27, they're going to launch 6 more models off of this platform, all using the same motors and technology. And they're also going to use the same technology in some of their other vehicles as well. So some of their flexible platform vehicles. So things like, next gen X5 and other stuff that are, not directly on this architecture, but they'll use these battery and electronic and motor components in other vehicles as well. So, first time seeing this thing in person, I was pretty impressed. I like the way it looks.
I've only seen the I guess they haven't called it the i3. It's the sedan, the 3 Series sedan size Neue Class.
Yeah.
Because they have an i3 from before, I feel like they should just take the name because it works.
Yeah, well, and they sell an electric 3 Series in China right now, which they call the i3. It's a China only product. So presumably that sedan that they showed in Munich last fall will be the next i3.
Yeah. So yeah, they look, and I know if you're looking at photos, you're like, are you sure these are? No, when you see them in person, they look so much cooler.
Yeah. And one of the things I like, I was talking with the designers about this, is the fact that they have cut down the side glass, so the belt line is lower. They deliberately, trying to go back in the opposite direction. And a lot of vehicles have gone over the last 20 years with higher and higher belt lines. They wanted to make the glass area larger, improve visibility, make it feel roomier. And you definitely feel the difference and sense the difference in there. So a lot of interesting stuff in this vehicle. These are all going to use new battery packs with cylindrical cells, 46 millimeter cylindrical cells. So similar to what Tesla's trying to do. But they'll actually be even a little bigger than the Tesla cells because they're going to be longer. So rather than 4680s, they're going to be 4695s and 46120s, depending on which vehicle it's in. So those will be cheaper. It's going to be a structural battery with no modules. So that'll, take cost out of it. The motors are going to be more efficient, the electronics. And then one of the things that they showed on the sedan concept last fall, and it's also in this SUV, is this panoramic display across the base of the windshield. And it's not like what's in the Nautilus, where, the Lincoln Nautilus, has this panoramic traditional LCD display. The Neue class vehicles are using a different, it's actually similar to a heads up display, but it sits like just, in this black area. So it's just below the rear edge of the hood. So you have this, when it's off, it just looks like a black strip that runs across, but then you can use the, when you turn it on, all the stuff pops up in there. It looks quite nice and it's quite visible. They're getting rid of the iDrive control knob, and you'll be able to select what stuff comes up on the panoramic display using the center touchscreen, similar to what you do on the Nautilus, but you have more options. You can select all the stuff that gets displayed on there. The only bad thing is the vent controls. It's like the Nautilus where you got to control those through the touchscreen.
Boo earns. Also, we don't need display on the right. I'm just going to keep saying that. I'm going to keep harping on it. I'm never going to stop. There's nothing. But what's nice is that unlike the Nautilus is that they moved the infotainment screen up.
Yes.
So the infotainment screen is up where you can actually see it, whereas on the Nautilus, in order to accommodate their A pillar to A pillar display, they've moved that screen down, which makes it more difficult to see and more difficult to use, especially when you have to do things with it, which is not great.
Yeah. And the door handles, if you look at the photos, you'll notice there appears to be no door handles, but what they have is like the little wings similar to what you have on the Mach-E front doors. But unlike the Mach-E where there's a button that's on the door, you press the button, and it's the same thing on the Cybertruck. You got the button there just above the door, and then there's a piston in the door that pops the door open a couple inches, and you grab the door and pull it open. On the Neue class, it's got this little wing, and then the button is on the inside of that. So when you go to grab the wing, you'll press the button, and then you pull the door open. So it's kind of a combination of like traditional door handle, but smaller and more aerodynamic. And then the button is on the inside of that wing.
I just want traditional door handles. So I just like to be able to know that a mechanical thing lets me out of the car.
Yeah.
I'd like to get out now.
Yeah. They also took us to the BMW Designworks studio in Santa Monica, which they wanted to show off some of the stuff that they're doing with AI, which is interesting. Whenever you go into an automotive design studio, or really any kind of design studio, one of the things that you'll inevitably find in there is a mood board. A big board with a whole bunch of pictures that designers, when they start off, they pull up a bunch of, they spend time searching through magazines and websites and whatever, and they find pictures and they put them up on this board, to kind of set the mood for what's the direction they're trying to go with this product. And what they're doing now at Designworks is they're using tools like Stable Diffusion and Midjourney to create images, playing with prompts, creating images. So instead of taking existing images to use as their inspiration for their design, they're creating stuff from scratch in AI and then using that as their mood board, and then taking that as their inspiration to go and actually design stuff by hand, which is kind of cool. So they get all kinds of weird images out of that, and that's giving them inspiration for new colors and new textures and materials to play with. So it was fun to see that.
Cool.
All right. Sticking with EVs for a minute more, the Tesla Cybertruck, which we've had lots of things to say about that.
Oh, Tesla.
This week, last week, they had apparently stopped deliveries of the Cybertruck to customers. And then this week, they announced that there was going to be a recall of all the Cybertrucks built to date, because it turns out that somebody on the assembly line decided to make an unapproved process change to the assembly process. Like a lot of vehicles, if you look at the pedals in a lot of vehicles, a lot of times, especially on more premium vehicles, they'll have, what looks like a metallic pedal or something like that. But if you actually take it apart, what you'll find is there's actually like a plastic pedal underneath, and there's some kind of cover on top of that. Cybertruck's no different in that respect. But usually those pedals, they have some sort of mechanical mechanism to retain the cover so the cover doesn't fall off. The Cybertruck, the way the accelerator pedal is designed, it's kind of long and narrow, as a typical accelerator pedal is, but it's kind of tapered towards the top, and the cover is supposed to slide on to the top. Well, it turns out several Cybertruck drivers have had issues with unintended acceleration because the pedal cover, the accelerator pedal cover, was sliding off of the pedal underneath. And the way the trim is set up underneath the dashboard, there was a gap in the trim there. And so when you push the pedal down, if the accelerator pedal, you push it all the way down, and then that cover slides off, it would slide right into this gap, and then it would get jammed there. And then you took your foot off, you'd still have full throttle. And modern vehicles all have throttle override when you hit the brake pedal, ever since Toyota's unintended acceleration thing a decade ago. So if you press the brake pedal, it will stop the vehicle. But, when you release the brake pedal, because there's no way to actually turn the vehicle off, when you release the brake pedal, it'll take off again. So it turns out that what happened was that workers assembling these the covers onto the pedal were having a hard time getting the cover on there. So somebody decided, let's use a little soap as lubricant.
So use a little soap,
which,
as you do.
Yeah, which unfortunately it turns out the soap was dissolving the adhesive that's supposed to hold that thing on there.
Oh, someone had a good idea that wasn't a good idea.
Yeah. And because they made a process change without getting it approved and tested and verified that this wasn't going to cause other problems, well, it turns out it did cause other problems. So
a very dangerous other problem.
Yeah. So they're recalling all the Cybertrucks, and they're drilling a hole through the pedal cover and the pedal and sticking a rivet in there to hold it in place.
All right. That's smart.
Yeah.
Because, like the dead pedal on my BRZ is sort of loose, and I'm just like, God dang it. But it's also like 10 years old. So I'm like,
and,
all right.
And it also doesn't actually do anything.
It doesn't do anything, but it really kind of irritates me.
Yeah.
I really got to fix that. But it's one of those things that you forget about as soon as you get out of the car.
Yeah. So if you have a Cybertruck, don't drive it until you get this fix done to your
Go ahead and put a rivet in there. Rivets are cool.
Yeah. All right. So at the LA Auto Show last November, Kia showed off a couple of concepts, the EV4 and the EV3. The EV4 was a sedan, which actually ended up looking quite a bit like the K4 sedan that they showed in New York. But they also have the EV3, which was a compact crossover, a small crossover. That one is apparently coming to production because it's been spotted out testing, doing cold weather testing, wearing camo, and they've seen it. And this thing could actually be surprisingly affordable.
I feel like everyone is handing the EV market to Kia and Hyundai.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh, I'm not going to make an inexpensive. We had an inexpensive EV, but we pulled it off the market. And then another company's like, oh, we're not going to make it anymore. We're going to make taxis. And Kia and Hyundai are like, fine with us.
Yeah.
We're just going to keep making cars. And eventually we're going to be a brand that's associated with EVs, but we're also going to be a brand where someone buys a Honda when they're 18 and then they become a Honda person for the rest of their lives. Someone buys a Toyota, someone buys a Dodge Neon in the 90s, and now they're only, Mopar or no car for the rest of their lives. This is how you build, a family around your vehicles. You build people who are excited about a vehicle. Is just give them the vehicle that people want, and they buy that vehicle. And they're like, oh, these are great. Why would I switch? And then when these other people come back to the EV market with the thing that they decided not to do or they killed or whatever, oh, it's too late. You've lost 20% of your market share because now everyone wants a Hyundai or a Kia.
Yeah. And so the EV3 apparently is being targeted at a sticker price of $32,000, which, and they're looking at probably producing it at their factory in Mexico, which is already producing it was producing the Forte and the K3, and it's now producing the new K4 sedan. They will apparently build the EV3 at the same factory, so it will be eligible, because it's built in North America, be eligible for the $7,500 tax credit, which gets it down to somewhere in the $24,500 range, which, I've seen this thing, it's a good sized vehicle. It's not, it's not a crazy small vehicle. It'll probably have a range of somewhere between 250 and 300 miles. And I think it's pretty cool looking.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably just going to replace the Nero.
Yeah. Most likely.
And Hyundai will have something that replaces the Kona.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's, and then they also, Kia had a big event the day after, Tesla said they were going to start doing robo-taxis. They're like, we're going to make all these cars. And one was the EV3, and then there was the EV2. And you're like, wait, what? Tell us some more about the EV2.
Yeah. That one's even smaller. Supposedly targeted under $20,000. Yeah. But I doubt that one will be offered in North America.
Boo.
You never know. I mean, it could be, but I doubt it.
Who knows? Who knows? No one swings like for the fences more than the Hyundai Motor Group at this point.
Yeah.
They're just going for it.
Let's see what else we got. Another small electric crossover was launched while we were gone. The Alfa Romeo Milano. Oh, never mind. It's not going to be called the Milano. It's going to be called the Junior,
which is not a cool name compared to Milano.
Yeah. Back in the 90s, they sold the Alfa 155. The predecessor to the 155. I forget what it was called. But it was sold in North America as the Milano. And Milan, of course, is the home of Alfa Romeo. That's where the company started in 1910. They were going to call this compact crossover, electric crossover, the Milano. But the Italian government objected because it's actually not. It's going to be the first Alfa Romeo that's not built in Italy. It's going to be built in Poland, the same factory that produces the Fiat 500 and the Dodge Avenger. The Avenger, yeah. which are both electric and using the same platform as those vehicles. And apparently, strangely enough, it's against the law in Italy to use the name of an Italian city for a product name if it's not actually built in Italy. So, okay.
There you go.
So they revived the Alfa Romeo Junior name, which was a little sport coupe that they built in the late 1960s, early 70s. Very, very cute little car too. It was a lot of fun. A friend of mine has one. So the Alfa Romeo Junior will probably, unfortunately, not be coming to North America because of its size. Although you never know. I mean, they might bring it over to compete with Mini, the new Mini Electric. But it'll have a range of about 250 miles. And there's also going to be a hybrid version with a gas engine, so a 1.3 liter 4-cylinder with a mild hybrid. But the electric one's the more interesting one. What do you think of the look of this thing?
I mean, it looks cool. It's like an Alpha.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Is that you're like, ooh, like Junior.
Yeah.
I wonder if you can get one and then just rub off the badges and put Milano on it yourself.
I'm sure that there will be a healthy aftermarket for replacement badges for these things.
Yeah, I'm just gonna get the Milano badge.
Yeah,
I'll make them in Italy. It'll be fine.
Yeah. So saw an interesting article on Jalopnik the other day. Back in the late 80s, Porsche was trying to figure out what to do next. They had at that time they had the 911, the 928, the 944, and the 928 and the 944 were both getting kind of long in the tooth. And they had also, especially the 944, had really gotten a lot more expensive than when it originally launched as the 924 in the 1970s. And so they were looking at, what to do next, to try and have something more affordable in the lineup. Obviously Porsche has long since given up on having anything affordable, but this at this time in the 1980s, they wanted an entry level model, and they were developing something called the 984. And they initially worked on it with Seat. And this was back before Seat was part of the Volkswagen group. It was going to have a mid-engine boxer 4-cylinder and be priced. They were aiming for a price tag of $14,000 in 1987 with 120 horsepower. So mid-engine 2-seat convertible, $14,000, which is pretty close to the pricing of what the first generation Mazda Miata was. And it would have potentially been out, to market before the Miata. What do you think of this thing?
It's cool. It's got these weird little like bulbous eyes. It looks like a little bug. But I'm a big sucker for any convertible, especially a small roadster. So
yeah,
anything bug eye sprites, those are goofy looking. Still like those. So no, I think they would have probably done well.
Yeah,
it would have changed the direction of Porsche, though, I think, substantially if they were, had gotten like a mass market success like the MX-5 in the low price range. So we probably would have like inexpensive, relatively inexpensive Porsches now.
Imagine if this had gone to production, been successful. And, today they were still offering, say, a $40,000 Porsche Roadster. Yeah.
It would have been, it's still, it'd be paid for by the Cayenne and the Macan, like everything else at Porsche. Of course. But, it's, the Miata or the MX-5, whatever you want to call it, it's still, they don't sell a billion of them.
Yeah.
But it's still such a part of, you can't be Miata without, you can't be Mazda without the MX-5. I don't think, I think this would be the same sort of situation.
Yeah, I think so too. All right. Let's see what else. Maserati unveiled the new Gran Cabrio, which of course is the convertible version of the Gran Turismo. And they showed it off, the first version, as the Gran Cabrio Folgore, which is the name that they're using for their electric models. I mean, this thing is just stunning, I think.
It's so pretty. And it's a convertible, something that the EV market needs now.
Yeah. And you need an electric convertible somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere. I mean, you could call the Hummer EV a convertible because you can take the tops off. So
It doesn't count.
yeah, but
It's too tall.
It's too tall. Yeah, I'm going through the slideshow looking at this thing. It's so pretty.
Yeah, it is. It is fabulous. So this should be coming to the U.S. market in a couple of years, probably in 2026, I think, is when it should arrive here, and it'll have a range of probably somewhere around 275 miles, which is probably fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, and they say a top speed of 180 miles an hour.
Which I guess. Where are you going? Especially in a convertible that fast. Like what? What? Why?
Well, and since it's electric, you're not going to get very far at that speed anyway.
Yeah. But at least it's 800 volt.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah.
So good on Maserati. I've been, I'm really happy that when they took over their own engine production, and so I feel like they have a little bit of the power in their own hands, which is good.
Yeah.
Because those vehicles are just beautiful.
So coming up this week in Beijing is the Beijing Motor Show, and there's going to be a bunch of stuff revealed there, among which is going to be some new Honda EVs for the Chinese market, the Ye series of EVs, and have shown 3 of them so far. What do you think of this? I mean, it doesn't look much like any Honda we've seen so far.
Right. The little S7, I think that would sell pretty well. That I think it's a sedan, or it's just a tall sedan. The
red one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a sedan.
Yeah.
4-door.
So I don't see why. I mean, I understand why they're building them for there. I understand, that market continue, they're again, China's like 10, 12 years ahead of us in EVs. That's all there is to it. You can't, we should be a little embarrassed by that. But it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So we can still do what we're doing. But you see all these cool things coming to China. I sat in the Seagull.
Oh yeah.
The BYD, they had a BYD Seagull at WCX, and it felt. I mean, I didn't drive it, so who knows? And it's it's clearly doesn't meet U.S. It's regulatory safety issues. In NHTSA would be like ha 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 ha. But you sit in, it's like really nice. It was really nice for $10,000. Like this is really nice for a $10,000 car. And I think the one that they got probably was the higher trim level. So I don't know, maybe $11,000-$12,000 for this vehicle. It had power seats, which I was like, well, okay. But yeah, if you live in China, you have this, this wealth of choice right now. And so, I need to get over to China and start talking to people for my job. But no, these are cool. You're seeing a lot of these like pretty cool vehicles coming out in China, but I wouldn't buy one and immediately drive it on U.S. roads because safety laws.
And I think I may have mentioned this before. Last year I took a tour of a company here in Livonia called CareSoft.
CareSoft. They're the ones that brought the Seagull.
Yeah, they're going to do a teardown of that thing. And when we toured the facility last year, one of the things they showed us, they had done teardowns of the VW Tiguan. They had 2 different versions of the Tiguan that nominally looked the same. You look at them, when they're all put together, they look pretty much the same. One was for Europe and North America that was built in Germany. The other one was the version that they sell in China, and it's built over there. And while they nominally look the same, once they took it apart, they realized there's a lot different between these two. Like there's a lot, like, for example, there was half the number of spot welds in the structure of the Chinese version, which means it's not going to be as strong. It was missing a bunch of braces and other stuff to meet US and European crash test requirements. So not the same thing, even though they look the same. So for something like the Seagull, while they can sell it for $15,000 in Mexico now, they're probably not going to be able to sell a version that meets U.S. safety requirements for $15,000. It might be able to do it for 25.
Even the Dolphin is $10,000 more in Mexico than it is in China.
Yeah.
Because just because of homologation for that country, because you have to hit a certain standard, and so whenever I did a whole podcast for SAE about this that went up on Tuesday, that was like, don't hold your breath for a $10,000 EV is essentially what I'm saying. Because yes, you see that, and everyone on TikTok and everyone on Facebook like, oh, they should just bring it over here, and I'm like, I mean, they could. If there wasn't like the political issues that surround China, you didn't have those political issues going on. Let's say everything was like, yeah, cool, bring a Chinese car over here. It's not going to be a $10,000 car. It's going to be a $22,000 car, which is still inexpensive, which is still a great deal. But you're not getting I'm sorry, you can't manufacture a car that meets U.S. standards for $10,000. You can get a motorcycle.
Yeah, and the few Chinese built vehicles that are sold here, like the Buick Envision, the Lincoln Nautilus, the Polestar 2, those are more expensive vehicles. They're not cheap vehicles, and part of that is the 27% import tariff on Chinese built vehicles, but part of it is also that they can't the versions of vehicles that they sell in China would not pass crash tests here.
Yeah, no,
they would just crumple up.
It would be interesting if NHTSA or IIHS got just bought some Chinese vehicles and did the crash test and just said, this is why.
Yeah.
These vehicles are, according to Chinese law, fine. According to Chinese, because no one's driving around in a giant Ford F-150. There's not 1,000 of those every 10 feet in China. There's all these little cars that when they ran into each other at 10 miles an hour, because it's the highly congested, super cities, that you're like, okay, fine. But here, where we're doing 80 miles an hour through the desert in Nevada, and there's some guy coming up behind you in a Ford Transit full of band gear, or a Cybertruck, like the wheel, the accelerator pedal slips up, and now it's just going to smash into your little Seagull. No,
I'll be curious to see, in 2026 when Honda starts building its new EVs here, if they retain this design language, or if this is something they're just going to use in China. Because it's an interesting look, especially, on the S7 and the sedan, whatever that's called.
Because it has a really sloping nose.
Yeah.
The face just slopes a lot. So it'll be interesting to see if they bring that over.
Yeah.
I'm sure they have tons of people who are like, well, according to polls and studies and stuff.
Yeah. All right. Okay. I guess the only other thing, unless there's anything else you want to cover, is while I was visiting the BMW Designworks studio, I sat down with Julia de Bono, who is the CEO of Designworks. So Designworks is a wholly owned subsidiary of BMW Group. And in addition to doing a lot of advanced design work for BMW, they also do work for other clients as well. For example, they've done aircraft interiors for some airlines as well as for some business jet manufacturers. They've done tractors for John Deere, all kinds of oddball stuff that you wouldn't think of. But they did a lot of the work on, some of the themes for what is going to become the Neue class. And so I sat down with Julia to talk about, where she sees BMW design going in the next decade or so. So I'm going to add that on here on the end, and we will say so long.
Goodbye.
Bye. So great presentation this morning. Some really
interesting insights there from what you said. So to start off, you're the CEO of Designworks. Designworks USA or all of Designworks?
All of Designworks.
Okay. So this is for my Wheel Bearings podcast. So for listeners that aren't familiar with Designworks, let's just give a quick overview of what Designworks is and where it fits in within the larger BMW design organization.
So Designworks is a BMW Group company. So we are a subsidiary of BMW North America. But Designworks was actually founded here 50 years ago before it was taken over 25 years later by BMW. But it always did do advanced design work for BMW design. Mm-hmm. The interesting thing compared to all other advanced design studios of all other OEMs is that we are actually doing third-party client business. So we have a lot of industrial design work. We have, the big airlines. We have John Deere. We have a lot of, like
eVTOLs. I see.
Yeah. Every kind of, discipline. And what is interesting is that we can learn with others. We can bring back the understanding of what luxury means, for example, from our airline work. How do we configure a very luxurious space, first class experience, back to Rolls-Royce, for example, and that is really interesting. And then we, of course, have the great possibility of reaching out to everyone around us now. It's every neighbor is really cool, really amazing people around here, film industry.
Here in Santa Monica, as opposed to your previous location.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. I was never at the previous location, as a CEO. I only moved here a year ago, but. Film industry, entertainment industry, the whole AI community here is really strong. We have Silicon Beach here. It's great, from an innovation standpoint, and people are very openly sharing the ideas, so and making them better. So it's a very interesting and very inspirational thing that we can bring back home.
So I think one of the things you emphasized was that the work that you do, at least for BMW, mm-hmm.
Is
typically not for the near-term projects. Although I think some of it is. Yeah. But one of the things that you really focus on is the long-term vision. Talking about the 2040s. And you talked, you kind of gave an interesting timeline from the Mesopotamian wheel up through Bertha Benz and your own history with cars. For as a designer in 2024, how do you see automotive design changing? What are some of the big themes to you in terms of the way vehicles are changing in the near term and 15, 20 years from now?
That is an interesting question. I think what is changing, I think what is not changing is definitely the human aspect and the way that people need to go from A to B, sometimes for pleasure and sometimes as a necessity. And individual mobility is a big part of that, and we are playing a big role in that. And I think there will always be a demand for that. What we do see is that the category car is under pressure. It's very discussed. It's bad. It's environmentally bad. There's of course a big discussion in Europe about SUVs and things like that. Generally there's a lot of pressure on that industry, and a lot of people are escaping, or a lot of companies are escaping. Finding good answers in the category car. They have computers on wheels, they have luxury on wheels, they have people movers, they escape by saying, we are not a car anymore, we are something else, but to really commit to this category car and say we are still a car company and we want to commit to that. I think that is the discussion that is the most difficult one, and that the one that you are most willing to, escape by having, some kind of excuse. And I really appreciate that BMW is committing to finding solutions in this very, very demanding space right now. So I think to fight for it, to fight what Bertha Benz fought for, individual mobility, is I think that's really key of what we need to achieve somehow.
To enable people to get where they want to go, to give them that freedom of movement.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the things about the car from the very beginning, through a wide variety of evolutions over the last century and a half.
Absolutely, yeah. And what else I really would love to keep in cars is the sensuality of it, like to feel it properly, because I think technology has often disconnected us from the world outside. It has come between the car feeling, I call it now, and humans, and we're trying to get that back, get this deep tactile and haptic feeling that gets us emotionally as humans, get that back into the car, have digitality not as something that is, like on the screen, binary, black and white. It should be something that is hugging you and that is making something even more immersive and more experienceable for all of your senses. And I hope that we can get that sensuality back with Neue Klasse. And I think, like haptics and sound and, visual, they all need to be addressed in a certain way, but don't overwhelm you.
I think interesting words you used earlier this morning were the car's embodied soul, and I think as we move more and more towards electrification and driver assistance and automated driving, it seems like that idea of soul in the car. For the longest time, BMW was the ultimate driving machine. It was always about that connection between the driver and the car. But it seems like the way technology is going that we're going to lose that soul. How do you foresee keeping that soul, that connection, that sensuality with the car as we make these technological changes at the same time?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think first of all, it takes a good team and a team with a soul to create a product with a soul. I think that's the most important thing. If you put your heart into something, you will feel it. And you will feel that in the cars that are coming out, that there was a team there with a soul and a team that was taking care of customers and wasn't like, the relationship between us and our customers should be that we listen to our customers and bring them something that they actually want. That they want to feel, they want to hear, they want something. And our customers, they are not the ones that need something, they want something. And you have to appreciate that, and don't tell them what they want, but listen first of all. And I think to start with a process of a car with just listening to the markets and to customer needs and to, what will they need in the future, and anticipate properly and do your work properly as a company. I think that's the homework we have to do. And the more diligent you do that work, the better your product will come out. That doesn't give you any soul yet, but I think we have a large history and a proud history that will always be, the lighthouse. And, people make sure that goes back into the cars. I think you will feel that.
Yeah, looking at the design language of what we've seen of the two Neue class concepts now, the sedan we've shown in Munich, and now the X.
Yeah.
The design language externally, has kind of stepped back a little bit.
Uh-huh.
It's a little more visually subtle.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps those BMW design cues, that design DNA, but with a more modern interpretation. But really, the interior, I think, is interesting, where there's clearly still a lot of technology, but it's almost like it's pulled back away from the driver, so it's not so much in the driver's face, and it's more the car itself. Maybe is that kind of where what you're trying to get at in terms of having the soul, having the essence of the car without the technology being there, but it's not overwhelming?
The
or am I looking at it from a different perspective?
No, you're looking at it right. That is the perception. And the thing is, with show cars, you put them there, but you don't drive them. Mm-hmm. And I think our cars need to be driven, and we need to talk about driving experience and the ultimate driving machine in order to feel it. You need to feel that connection. It's something that you can't really communicate through a show car. You can only say, okay, the stance of the car implicates that it's driving well. We can put a lot of focus on the wheels because they're the ones that are driving you, and you can highlight those. But I think, the whole driving experience and what you call the ultimate driving machine, you will only feel when you're actually driving the car. And there is the large team, there is a small design team and there's a large team of people who are actually taking care of the driving experience. They never get the platform that we get, but they should do, because they are doing a great job at, giving the driving experience texture and making it perfect in the right moment, right time to, have the right information that you need as a driver, but don't overwhelm you with the information that could be there, but shouldn't be there. I think they deserve a lot of credit for the work that they are doing, and there's a lot of experimenting on the road involved. So I always saw our boss Mike Reichelt come back from driving experiences of the first Neue Klasse cars, and there are so many points that need to be corrected, and then the next time he was like, oh no, we made it, and it gets more and more a BMW. And that is the diligent work that I'm talking about, that you have to put into the cars and the systems in order to get a real BMW out at the end. And yeah.
I just want to add, I think the point, Sam, you made is right. We've talked for a while about not wanting to overwhelm people with technology, right? It's there when you need it. Mm-hmm. It should be easy to use, easy to access, but you shouldn't feel overwhelmed by the technology around you.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Last thing I wanted to touch on was from Hussein's presentation was the use of technology in the design process, which has been really interesting to see how you're using that here, using generative AI, not to replace the designer, but to augment what the human designer does.
Sure.
Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I think the main thing is that we have to understand the tool and have to conquer the tool. In the end, it is a tool, and it's like going to home base. You have to actually, you get the tools, and then you have to start understanding them. You have to work with them. You have to fail with them, but you have to become a craftsman. And what we are in the process of is becoming craftsmen with these tools. And that is really exciting, because it does take, everyone thinks it's an input-output tool, but it's not true at all. You have to put a lot of work into it in order to get something out that is in any way usable. But it is very inspiring as soon as you get there. And we are doing a lot of AI work. We're also, teaching our own algorithms and everything, which we didn't show today, but it is an interesting a new part of our work to understand how do you have to treat an algorithm in order to get something back that carries the soul of the company. So to be human-centric, you have to also teach an algorithm to be human-centric, to be generous, to be kind. And no one understands that, People just think, an algorithm is just something that is, you put something in and you get something out. It's like a cheap labor. But it's not. It really
and certainly not with these kinds of algorithms.
No, not at all. You have to be really. You have to teach it about. We treat it like a new employee. So we have to teach it about who we are and how we work together, and how we want to be treated as well. So it treats us in the same way, and the same with creativity. How do we create something? And it's the opposite of an input-output tool. As soon as you go away from the tools that are existing, generating your own tools, you have a responsibility. And you have the responsibility to create something good rather than something that is threatening, So we are spending a lot of time trying to provide that, teaching it how to behave and how to become a good BMW associate and a good BMW employee that carries on what the company has been all about. So
yeah, and I think one of the things that is problematic with generative AI in a lot of applications, the fact that it won't always give you the same result for the same input. I think it seems like that can actually be a real benefit in the design process because of the serendipity that you get, of having different results and come up with something that inspires you. I like the idea of using this as a new way of creating those theme boards. I've seen those theme boards for years in design studios, but using this to generate a new spontaneous theme board. And then work from that to design, and then work backwards from that again, reverse that process to create new content from the design that the humans have created.
Yeah, it's really interesting. For us, one of the most inspiring processes, really. And, what's always happening is what Hussein said, it's starting to hallucinate. And that's a flaw in, for any AI developer, really. But for us...
But for designers, it's great.
It's great. We don't want it to stop, and they are trying everything to stop it hallucinating. And we are trying everything to avoid it stopping hallucinating, because it's our biggest inspiration, We don't need a ready-made car from an AI. We need something that is, getting us started, and having a good foundation and a bandwidth of foundation that... an AI doesn't have any rules, and it's good that it's breaking rules, and it's not actually breaking rules. It just doesn't have any, and it's got this childlike naivety that is really refreshing somehow.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Everyone's talking about AI these days, right? This season on Compiler, we're diving deep into how AI is reshaping the world we live in. Join us for a new season of Compiler, an original podcast from Red Hat. Subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts.
Shopify is a global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business and sell more with less effort thanks to the Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/redcircle, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/redcircle now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/redcircle.